your story, by the way. I think your story is
Thank
pretty
you.
amazing. And I want to ask you about it because I often go down the road with people about preparing for a show, getting ready for a show. And, the process is always different. Either they get to it, they don't get to it. It changes the way they look at exercise after the show. But you kind of, it didn't leave you with the best road ahead, right? It kind of
No,
it kind of
no.
tripped you up a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
What
Um,
it was disordered eating, right? You kind of went down that road
oh
and then you
yeah,
had
yeah.
okay.
Full
Huh.
full blown eating disorder, full blown
Wow.
i- depression, the whole nine yards. Yeah, the whole experience, although it taught me so much, it
Mhm.
really left me broken in a lot of ways. And I have to at least say that even though the experience did leave me broken, it
Mhm.
created my purpose. So without it,
Amazing.
like I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So
And but it's cool though that you can through all of that you can find your way into fitness that's more healthy, and it kind of opens up opportunities for you. Do you feel like people should go down the road of preparing a show just if they want something to have, as a short-term goal?
yeah, I got this question the other day,
Yeah.
and I always say, first and foremost, if you are going to go down this road, especially as a woman, could you see yourself being happy at your current weight,
Mm,
20 pounds lighter and 20 pounds heavier? And if you can say yes to all three of those, then you're probably in a good, healthy headspace to do so. If
okay.
you say no, especially to the gaining weight one, you're probably not in a good headspace to do it. Now, although I am, so thankful and appreciative of the structure that a goal like that does provide,
Hmm.
it's not for everyone. And it is a goal that I think is glamorized in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
and that people don't really see like the full blown scope of what that goal entails and some of the long term consequences or ramifications that may come with it.
Yeah, and it's nice to hear your perspective, because everybody doing it, they always talk about the benefits and the amazing things that come with it, especially after the fact. They compete, and it sets them on a more concrete way of working out, I guess. When they go into the gym, they have a more focused approach to it. But no, I like the fact that you're performance focused, and you talked about Girls Gone Strong, and
Mhm.
that was in your bio. And I think there's a website called Girls Gone Strong, but that was a
There is.
program you're talking. Okay, because I've been to the
Yeah. Yeah.
website. I freaking love the website, by the way. Some
Yeah.
cool, like real researched shit on there. So I go there for like to look at articles and stuff. But you're talking about a program, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So after that whole show and experience, which was, most of my 20s, after I competed in figure, I spent most of my 20s out of the gym.
Okay.
And then thankfully, I had a friend who recommended a CrossFit gym in the area.
Hmm.
And long story short, I was hooked, and they eventually created this class called Girls Gone Strong, not
Yeah.
affiliated with
The
Girls Gone
website.
Strong as we know.
Okay.
But it was basically an all girls class where we learned the barbell lifts. So we learned how to squat, bench, and
Really cool.
deadlift. And up until that point, none of us had ever really used a barbell. So it was just this like environment where we could all focus on building strength, building each other, and focusing on what we could do
Mm.
rather than trying to fit a standard or look at what we weren't, which was very reminiscent of the whole figure competitor physique kind of world that I had come from.
When it comes to preparing for a women's physique competition, are you really generally taught to focus less on the performance aspect, or
Oh
from
yeah.
the teaching that you got when you were prepping for it?
Yeah.
It's yeah, kind of a
Yeah, I
dumb
will say
question, because
this.
like of course you're going to care about what you look like, but there's different ways to go about it. So I'm always you never know what's being told, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Well, also mind you, this was 2005. So
Okay.
this was a vastly different time of competing
Mm.
where flexible dieting wasn't talked about. It was, here's your meal plan, follow it for 12 weeks, do your 2 hours of cardio,
Super strict.
Up
Yeah.
until that point, I had never touched a barbell. So everything was like machines and dumbbells. So it was vastly different. However, it's still a lot of the same premise. You're going to focus on what you look like, and you're going to focus on bringing up areas that are not good enough. And it's always just this focus of like striving for more and fixing, instead
Mm.
of just like really relishing in the fact of like, oh my God, I can do this. I can work towards this and achieve this, which was what I really loved about, that class. And then eventually getting into the world of powerlifting. I mean, it completely changed my life. And it also completely changed my perspective of this thing that we call fitness and
Yeah.
how we go about that.
Do you feel like your body has changed more now that you've shifted that focus and you've spent just a lot of time building up all of the powerlifting aspects of your life? Like you've seen more physical outcomes from that?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I look better now not even when I don't try. I hate to say it like that, when I'm
But
just like
that's
training and eating
great.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look better now than I did on stage, like hands
I
down.
love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And it's probably based on a healthier foundation anyway. Your mind isn't fixated on the look, it's fixated on the progress and the I get the journey as opposed to the other stuff. That's pretty
Yes,
cool.
exactly. It was all about, now I focus on what I can do, and I focus on what I'm able to do, instead of like constantly dwelling in what I'm not or what
Mm.
I don't have.
How does your diet reflect what you're doing right now with powerlifting? Are you keeping it relatively strict, or I imagine it's got to have some leeway just with your business and all the stressors you have in life right now?
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
just depends. Like the last 2 years have not been competing, obviously, because of COVID. So it was more or less just, nutritious foods, just like any, you would tell any client, right? Like
Mhm.
90% of the time I'm eating good foods. I just started prepping for a first meet to kind of make my comeback. So now I have to
Awesome.
make a weight class. Yeah.
Okay,
So
that's really
now,
cool.
having to make weight, now you gotta rein it in a bit. But still, like, I go out to eat with my friends. I
Nice.
socialize. Like, I'm not so fixated and like in this bubble of like, oh my God, I need everything to be super strict and dialed in. And that was one thing that I hated about my experience, but I also hate how others get to that point too, where they become just so focused in on things that
Yeah.
the whole outside world like shuts down for them. And sometimes they mean to do it, and sometimes they don't. That's just what happens when you go towards a goal like that. It could be very all encompassing and consuming.
Yeah, and there's back when back when it was very strict on the dieting and the process and everything. I think the big question that people maybe wanting to do a show are the big question is, how in the world do you fit that into like a busy lifestyle? And the idea of flexible dieting, you mentioned it, could be adapted nowadays. And so many people have been talking about it, and I didn't even really know about it until like, this year, honestly, the beginning of this year, somebody said flexible dieting and was like, I'm sure I know what that is, but I've never heard it put that way. But it's cool because I'm sure you could take that and apply it to something that is meant to be strict like that, you know?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's what I think my biggest point of contention is, when people always use like a show to get to their goal. It's like, okay, I think going towards and doing a show is a great goal. However, we don't need to approach our goals, especially if they're weight loss or transformation goals, in such an extreme manner. And that's really
I
what
agree.
I've
Yeah.
been building and trying to cultivate, that we don't have to go to extremes in order to achieve our best possible self. Like, there can be
Love that.
balance. We can do it in a sane way. But the industry has just led us to believe that we need to go to these extremes. And I think what's happening is there's a lot of us that have been down this road for quite some time, and we're seeing the ramifications of it. And we're finally speaking out and saying, no, you don't need to do this. You don't need to do, you know, the
Mm. the crazy over the top.
75-day hard, workout 8 times
So
a
many
day.
people do
Well, what
that.
if you're a single mom with 3 kids,
Yeah,
and getting to the gym once a day is a challenge. So yeah,
for real.
I
So many people do the 75 hard thing. I don't know if somebody mentioned that to me the other day. That just started cropping up on my feed and on my like in my life. Everybody was like, I'm doing the 75 hard. You doing the 75 hard? I was like, I don't know what the hell that is, but okay, yeah, that's the thing. And it might be just with like I've heard it from a lot of people. It's really weird how that just took on all of a sudden. But yeah, you're right.
yeah,
It's not realistic. It doesn't transfer, past somebody like that, and it doesn't go to people with families and a lot more life to deal
right.
with. Yeah.
Right. But that's the fitness industry, right? We need to sell what's sexy. We need to sell what's hard.
For real.
We need to sell extremes. So I get it. Like it is a selling thing, but the most effective methods that are out there are some of the simplest, most basic, boring things there are. You just implement
Yeah.
that consistently over time.
Is it this is like the pendulum needs to swing back to that side with fitness, but I still don't like with what you see on Instagram and with a lot of popularity be given to people who are selling pretty strict program, very basic programs, like a lot of fitness celebrities and everything. Why do you think that is still pretty popular? Because it doesn't in my mind seem very simple. It's like what we talked about, the real strict plans, and it's you got to grind it out. You got to do this diet this way. Like why would you think that is still popular? Because I really don't know. you know
I think that we've become a culture of extreme, and
yeah,
extreme can be both ends, right? It can be extreme, like I'm going to do all of the
the
train hard and
crazy stuff
diet and
that yeah the that
discipline and all of that. Or you
yeah.
can go the other route and be like, well, losing weight is easy. You just have to take this pill and do whatever.
Oh, that's
Um,
that's true. That's yeah.
so yeah, I think extreme sells, like, let's be honest. And the fitness industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So it's going to do what it needs to do to survive.
Extreme sells.
And,
Yeah.
and like I said, boring and simple is not something that people gravitate towards
Not
because
sexy.
it's not sexy.
Ugh.
And to be honest, like humans, we tend to think that in order for something to be effective, it needs to be difficult, right? So we're going to go and seek those things that seem difficult, where if you just say, okay, here's a program with a couple compound lifts, a couple accessories, we're going to clean up your diet 80% of the time and swap out food choices, and for the majority of the people that will work, especially when trying to get
Mhm.
20-30 pounds off of them when they're 50 or 60 pounds overweight. But they don't want to listen to that. They want to go to those extremes because they think that it needs to be like that in order to get results. And let's be honest too, we want everything yesterday. So when
We
something
do.
is going to promise us results in that quick amount of time, we're going to do it instead of playing the long game and the sustainability game.
How do you deal with people hitting that wall of like not accept, not seeing, or they don't think that they're changing, they don't think the process is working? Do you have to come up with a way to like, no, just chill, where it's going to happen, you got to keep going?
Yeah, I
But
think honestly, for most people, it's just educating them. I think educating
yeah,
them on what this journey is really about and what happens during it, and that nothing is linear ever. I think that, and then just reiterating the point that this is a journey that is really never ending. You may get to your goal, but the goal doesn't just mean that you stop everything. And that was one of the things that I really learned the hard way, after competing, was I got down to 112 pounds. I super tiny. And then I
yeah.
thought, oh, I can just eat and drink whatever I want. I turned 21. I was like, oh, okay, here
Hell
we go.
yeah.
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 And then, the matter of 5 months, I had ballooned up to almost 170. So I
Wow.
learned real quick that didn't work. Um,
Huh.
so, it's just really accepting the fact, and I hate to say it because it's such a cliche, but it's true. It's a lifestyle. Like this is just something that becomes an habitual part of your life. And
Mhm.
it's something that you decide, this is how I'm going to live my life. And the more that you can be at peace with that decision, and the more that you can say, okay, this is how it's going to be, rather than those yo-yoing back and forths, the better off. And I think sometimes just having conversations, very candid conversations with people, and
So true.
sometimes they don't even know, they don't even know that they're in that like kind of all or nothing mindset, or
Mm.
that they're stuck seeing the big picture. So just having like compassion and empathy and talking with them can help.
It might be, do you think that people don't know what their actual goals are? Like they might have an idea of what they want to look like, but it doesn't reflect, like that they haven't fleshed out the goal enough to a point where it's like you really have to reel in the goal, make it realistic, make it worth progressing towards. Essentially, it doesn't have to be extreme like what you said.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't know their why. They
Oh,
see a
that's
goal, and
true.
they see like, okay, I want to look a certain way. Well, why do you want to look that way? Or I
Yeah.
want to be 30 pounds lighter. Well, why? Is it because this 30-pound or this scale weight is some arbitrary number? Or is it that you want to be able to go play with your kids and not get out of breath? So understanding the why behind everything, I think, is key. But then also creating goals on things that you really want, not what society or culture says that you should want, but that's something you inherently want. Again, kind of going back to the weight loss stuff, not
Mhm.
saying, oh, I want to be 130 pounds because that's what's expected of me, but rather, I want to be 130 pounds so I can live my life in a healthy manner and not get, out of breath, and be able to do the things that I want to do.
Yeah.
So again, I think it's kind of a combination of both.
And it makes sense. I completely agree. The combination of like the intrinsic and the extrinsic, like doing it for somebody, but at the same time holding on to your own value, that your own value system that you want to progress toward. And no, that's really cool. And maybe that's kind of the pitfall for like new trainers. And I know I certainly did it. I was like, yeah, I'll make you fit in a month. We're gonna get muscular, we're gonna get buff and big. And
Yeah.
then realizing that, oh wait, no, that's not true. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, no, that's cool. What do you see yourself ever competing again? Do you want to like get back
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
stage eventually?
Actually, I
Cool.
just made the decision that not only am I going to compete next year in 2022 on the
Yeah.
platform, but I'm going to go back on stage. So I have not been on stage in over a decade.
Wow.
So I've already kind of mentally prepared myself that one, it's going to be a lot different than I did it, the first time around. But then
Yeah.
also, this is more intrinsic for me, that I want to prove to myself that I can do this. I can live my life, and I can set a goal for myself. And, hopefully marrying the two, using the education and the tools that I've learned over the years, will help make that experience a lot more enjoyable this time around and fulfilling. And instead of, the
Yeah.
first time that I did a show, I did it for pure external validation. I was a kid that was overweight, teased, all of that. And I did it because I looked at those girls on stage and I said, I want to look like that. That is what,
That was your
I
body
thought
type. Yeah.
healthy, happy, all of that was. And the fact of the matter wasn't, it was all smoke and mirrors. So yeah, there's a lot of like internal kind of gratification that I'm going for by
Yeah.
setting the goal.
It's almost like the internal gratification has to come from just doing it for the sake of knowing you can do it, as opposed to doing it because you need to look a certain way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think so many people underestimate that, right?
Yeah.
They go for these goals, and they're not just like physique based goals. I see it a lot in the powerlifting world too, where you think, oh, I have to attain this squat number or whatever. And it's like, no, why can't you just go for a personal best based on what you could do, what's within your capability, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and the competition is definitely changing for men, I guess. I always look at the men and they're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's like, okay, it's stupid. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
is it the same with the women's competition that you're seeing?
It is. I mean, the
Okay.
sport itself has blown up I got
For
into
sure.
it. It'll be almost 7 years, six or
Oh, wow.
7 years now. And I mean, even from that time to now, like it's just exploded.
Yeah.
I think what is great about that is that more people are starting to see how awesome strength training is, especially from a woman's perspective. But I also see that it's cultivating this like competitiveness and this like almost this comparison a lot, right? Like I'm not good enough because I don't lift like her, or I don't do this, or I don't do that.
Interesting.
And
Yeah,
so that's
for
like a
sure.
little bit discouraging. But yeah, I also do think too that the competition is growing because, well, one, more people are into it, but two, training programs and all the education and information around it has just exploded. We're getting
Yeah.
so advanced on understanding all of this stuff,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it makes sense.
And you're right. When everybody's getting exposed to weightlifting and everything, I think also too, just on like a purely like celebrity perspective, that there's all these power lifters and everything that are getting into different sports and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And I see it's there's like the whole boxing match. It was like half Thor and Eddie Hall and everything. And it was just,
Yeah.
it's just funny. I'm watching, like, to your point, it's almost like these sports are getting a lot of notoriety all of a sudden because people are becoming celebrities. They're doing boxing, MMA. There's just this weird crossover happening between all these sports. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's the darndest thing. But yeah, I definitely agree with you in that it sheds some light on weightlifting and the benefits and what strength can bring to your body type. And you also did CrossFit, right? You were also dabbled in the world of CrossFit.
Yeah, that's actually how
Yeah.
I found powerlifting. So I,
Okay.
like I had mentioned before, I went into CrossFit. I loved it. I loved the sense of community that was very reminiscent of, I was a softball player growing up. So like to have that team and that community was huge for me. But I loved that I could walk into that gym
Hmm.
and not be judged. And if I was judged, it was based on what I was doing, right? It was how much I could lift, or how much how
Proper
quickly I
judgment.
could do the workout. Right. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't about like, oh, her abs aren't shredded or her legs are too big or whatever it was. So I loved that. I
Awesome.
competed a little bit just on like a local level, but I have to, say what you want about CrossFit. Like it does have its like downfalls, don't get me wrong,
Sure.
but it really paved the way, not only for me and I think many other women, to get into strength training and working with a barbell and celebrating the fact that you can lift a shit ton of weight and still look feminine and still be a woman and beautiful and all of that. And then
Yeah.
also shift the perspective away from like just looks.
Mhm.
We're now being looked at as like, oh, that's strong, that's awesome, like you can focus on what you can do. So
And
CrossFit did then eventually lead me into powerlifting.
that's amazing. And it definitely, I used to crap on CrossFit a lot, but after learning about it and really like experiencing what people thought about CrossFit, it made me realize that truly for dudes, especially, we're so focused on getting buff and doing the very classic weightlifting type of exercises, bro splits and everything. And CrossFit definitely has a very unique way of building some crazy hard bodies based on what they do, and I love it. It's true. It's like you got to approach it from a safety perspective, but if you do it safely, god, you could reap the benefits from CrossFit. It's probably
Yeah.
it blesses you in spades. Like it just gives you all these amazing tools to
Yeah.
use.
Yeah. I
So
was so fortunate to the gym that I went to. They didn't use CrossFit programming. They were so focused on making sure that we were educated,
love
both
it.
from a training perspective, but also form and technique. So had I not stumbled into a gym like that, I don't know if I'd be as one, educated, but two, just have the perspective that I have now.
Yeah.
So I have to thank them. And I do know that there's other gyms like that, that they operate under the CrossFit name, but they are using intelligent programming. They're making sure that people are safe and that they're looking at people and helping them be healthy,
Mhm.
long-term and sustainable. And it's not all about, well, how many clean and jerks can you do in, 5 minutes or whatever it is. Like, they're focused on making sure that the right exercise prescription and the right modalities are fitting that person for where they're at.
Yeah, to be a CrossFit trainer too, that is like a long process. I don't that's not any online certification, that's for sure. It's damn,
Yeah,
that's tough. I
yeah,
talked to somebody, I was like, man, you really gotta like you gotta know your shit if you're gonna get to that level of like training and everything. So
yeah.
do you see people with your business and everything? What who do you find comes to you the most? Like what kind of client tends to
So
seek
I
you
really,
out?
I have two kinds of clients that I tend
Okay.
to attract. One is the woman who's been through it all, who has literally tried everything and still like doesn't feel like she looks or feels how she wants. So
Yeah.
she's the person who, will go to the group fitness class, will go to spin, will go to all of these things. And she's like, why do I still not feel my best? And then I have another person who's just like, you know what? I'm way too busy. I run a business. I have a family. I have a spouse. I need someone to just put the plan on paper
Mhm.
or give me the plan, give me the hour and tell me what to do. And I'm going to do it. I just don't have the brain capacity to think about it for myself.
D does that work? Because I know for me personally, like, you get to that point where you just need somebody to like do it for you, but then it's like it's and it may just be me, but it's like I always run out of the motivation. It's like even though you have everything, it's almost like it's not enough. You know,
Well, what I love about those people is more often than not, whether they have it already or they will get to it when you're working with them, is they realize it's more about creating that time for themselves and that appointment. And they
that's
know
clever.
I
Yeah,
can't do this on my own. I'm way too busy, but I need to schedule you in so that I can make sure it gets done. And so they value that aspect of, one, your knowledge, but two, that you're going to be able to effectively help them towards their goals because they just got way too much going on.
yeah,
But you're right. Like, I can only do so much in an hour. I can only do so much, when we're outside of that hour. So for a lot of times, both clients, I'll always implement, or any client really that comes to me, is habit building. Like,
mm,
this is all, when we look at this journey, and I'm sure you can, attest to this, it's all just building little habits,
yeah,
and building wins on top of wins. And I think when you can break it down like that, people can see, okay, this journey doesn't have to be as complicated. This journey doesn't have to be one where I'm, you know, speeding down the road and then crashing and speeding down the road and crashing. Like, it's just these small steps over time.
yeah, and you're right. Just the tendency to yo-yo and bite off more than you can chew is always the pitfall. But I like that habit building thing because I'm sure so many people, don't get enough sleep, don't drink enough water. There's just all these little tiny things throughout the day that could be done to better your outlook on life and your positivity and everything that could positively influence your workout.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure you see it too. How many people come to you and they're like, you look at maybe a food log and they don't even have a vegetable in there. You're like, well, let's just start by having one serving of vegetable every day,
Yeah.
and it may seem comical to us or funny, but the fact of the matter is that's where that person is. And to tell them, okay, here, just take this meal plan of, you know, 3 or 4 meals that require a bunch of prep and all of that, while you're running your business and your family and all of that, for some people, it's too overwhelming. And that's why they
Yeah.
either can't sustain it or they never start. So when you can break it down into small things like that, sometimes those really small wins, especially early on, can help build that momentum. So, okay, now we can get into more structured things like building balanced meals and, and maybe even one day counting macros. But for where you're at now, like, let's just start with something small.
Yeah. And geez, I gave up on the counting macros too. That was doing the shows and everything. I was like, okay, cool. I'll do that. I'll do that for now. But after, it's funny. It's like, once you do it, I don't know. Do you still do counting macros? Is that kind of where
I
you're
do.
still do?
I do.
I applaud you for that. That is intense. I love it.
Only because I'll be very honest and candid. I know myself that if I don't count, I always will overmeasure or overfeed. I love food. I grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago, so I am a foodie.
Yeah. Awesome.
So I know for myself, in order to reel it in, I have to do that. Now, does that mean I carry my scale and measuring cups everywhere I go? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I live my life, but when I have the opportunity to measure things out and control and count, I do.
Sure. Yeah. So it's the whole, everybody talks about the 80-20 thing. It's kind of into that, like, if you're going to eat healthy, then you do it the way you've planned to, with the counting the macros. And then with the 20%, you could be going off somewhere, restaurant, bar, whatever. So yeah, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's like a safety net, to be fair,
Yeah. And to be honest too, coming from, a history of disordered eating, flexible dieting has really saved my life. I have to admit, I don't feel like, okay, I can't have this food because it'll make me fat, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. Flexible dieting has, taught me you can have whatever you want. It's really a numbers game, right? So we play the numbers game. We can fit it in. Now, that's not to say it's as easy as that. I mean, there has been years of trial and error in developing that skill, but just like training, it's all a skill, right?
Yeah.
So we're building these habits and building these, experiences to sharpen that skill.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes sense that everybody has to bring themselves through that. They have to push themselves through all the experiences that you faced, and or potentially go through all that stuff. And then eventually they get to a point where, once they've known but like given themselves time to know their bodies, and they can do the macro counting, or they can make these choices that are based on their experience at that point.
Yeah. And for some people, that macro counting may be intuitive eating, right? That they just want to get to a point, or they feel more comfortable in a point where I'm not fixated on what I'm eating. I just want to intuitively eat, and that works for them, and that's great. And I think that's one of the most important things about this journey, whether we're talking strength or even nutrition, is it's a journey of self-discovery as well. So when you understand not only the construct of the journey itself, but yourself as you are in that journey, like everything changes. And that's another thing that I think the fitness industry doesn't really look at, is there's not a one size fits all. You said it yourself. You hate counting macros.
Yeah.
I thrive off of it. That doesn't mean counting macros is either, God or terrible. It's just, it fits for the right person. It doesn't fit for another.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said too, and this will be in the title when I put this podcast out, you said self-discovery. You said the journey of self-discovery. And that is the issue with a lot of what we see today on websites and programmed plans, is the quick fix. And we've already been discussing it, but yeah, the whole idea of self-discovery is not included in today's fitness literature, So that's
I
so
mean,
damn true.
I don't know how you can really go down this journey without having self-discovery.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sometimes people don't want to look inwards. So it's easier to just say, I'm going to just follow this program and I'm going to get this body or attain this goal, and everything's going to be okay. Whereas, well, you might still be unhappy. I'll be the first to admit I had the body of most women's dreams. And I was very unhappy, very depressed, very low self-worth. And until you peel apart those layers, some people just continue on that cycle, right? They just think, oh, well, I'll do another show, or I'll do another this, instead of like taking a step back and being like, why am I doing this? What is this for?
That's interesting because it makes you think that like maybe the competitors at the high level, to kind of well-known competitors are maybe in that mindset where it's like they look back and they're like, what did I do this for? Like,
Yeah,
I don't know. I
that
know it
would be
sucked, but an interesting
yeah,
thought.
that would be a great almost study to have. And I don't even know
Yeah.
if you could get a truthful answers, but I often wondered that. I often wondered how many competitors at that high level have a healthy mindset when it comes to this stuff. How many people are able to do it in a sane way? I mean, let's
Yeah.
be honest, when you do get to that pro level, there is some element of sacrifice, of
Big time.
extreme. Anytime you get to any pro level, like you have to keep that in mind. But I wonder at what point does it become too much, right? Or is it
Yeah.
like, oh wow, these people, why are they doing
Why are
this?
they? Yeah, you could. It's almost like they must hit a point where they ask themselves that question, but they're so far into it that they just kind of keep going, and
Yeah,
it's become their nature at that point, and they can't separate.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I fully support anyone that's on the pursuit of being their best possible self. I mean, I'll
Same.
be
Yeah.
completely candid. That's like a part of my branding. I
Yeah.
want to help people become their best possible self. But I think when people think of that, that means that they have to eliminate life, and they have to eliminate looking inward, right?
Yeah.
So when we can do both of those things, and we can come to this process and journey of self-discovery and still live our life, I mean, it can be truly magical, but sometimes people don't want to do that.
Yeah. No, and it brought up a question too, and this will be my last one. This occurred to me, nowadays with media and everything, there's always been talk about body positivity and thinking about body positivity. Do you feel like it's like, how do you feel like has the definition changed? Has it caused problems with fitness per se?
So
What do you
actually,
think?
I just had a conversation with the client about this.
Yeah.
Body positivity, to me,
Okay.
um, it's an amazing concept. It's an amazing thing to be at. So
Definitely.
I will never say you should never hate your body. You should always accept your body. Where I have a little bit of an issue is you also shouldn't be shaming those who maybe want to improve their body. Or
I feel
you
that. Yeah.
also shouldn't think that because you want to improve your body, you should be hating your current body. So I think that there needs to be almost this duality of, I can be comfortable and happy with my body, but I can also still work towards a goal. And I can
Yeah.
also still want it to be better, stronger, whatever that adjective you want to use in there. So I think, again, we're going back to extremes. It's
Yeah.
like
That's
the
for sure.
body positivity movement
Hmm.
has kind of gone to that pendulum of, you can't,
You must
if you're
hate
working
yourself if
towards, yes,
you're going toward that goal.
right,
Yeah.
right. And if you want to be quote unquote skinny, or whatever it is, that's not body positivity, that you're not
Interesting.
comfortable with where you're at and you don't love your body. And to me, that's horseshit.
Yeah, no, and I agree. The definition needs to be changed. It's that there's having any kind of goal is admirable. It's just but yeah, I like that. But you don't have to hate yourself. You could still be body positive while working toward becoming more fit if that's what you
Yeah.
want to do. Yeah, yeah. No, I completely
And
agree with
again,
that.
I think we can go back to earlier in the conversation of, why is it that you're doing it? Right? Why is it that you're working towards this goal? Is it for internal validation?
Mm,
Great. Then you should be positive about yourself. You should look at yourself in a healthy way, but also have this perspective that what I'm at right now isn't my end game, and that's okay.